We were talking with Pew about what became the National Survey of Student Engagement. It didn't have a name in 1998. And we did a quick series, well, two, what we call field tests. Peter Ewell may have talked with you about this because he was intimately involved in those. And near the end of the second, we were invited by Pew to write a proposal to run this survey. And in that proposal, Linda, we actually had the gall to say we wanted to do this with both 2-year and 4-year institutions. And we had fleshed this out in the proposal. And it didn't take too long before Russ Edgerton and Michelle Seidel, who was then also working, she was kind of the second person in charge, so to speak, in the education program at Pew Charitable Trusts. It didn't take too long for them to say, why don't you take the 2-year sector out of this proposal? We think you're probably going to have your hands full just trying to figure out how to do what became the National Survey of Student Engagement, right? So I don't know whether we were mildly disappointed, but of course, our background, my background, the folks I was working with did not have nearly the tickets, so to speak, the gravitas, the recognition on the ground as the University of Texas at Austin, the Community College Leadership Program, and Kay in particular, although we didn't know what was going to happen with this 2-year project, or even if it was going to happen. I mean, the lights were blinking amber, an occasional green light near as we could tell. So you should know that. Folks ought to know that we wanted it all at Indiana University. But within a few months, there was talk, and I don't remember the exact details, but I do remember at least one and probably 2 meetings in Austin where I and some of the others we've already mentioned and a few others around the table began to flesh out what a 2-year student engagement survey might do and it might look like. And so I've mentioned those key people already.
A year or so after NESE was launched, Russ Edgerton asked me where the community college survey should be located. And I had to think for about a nanosecond. I was then living and working in Denver at the Education Commission of the States. And it took me a nanosecond to say the Community College Leadership Program at the University of Texas at Austin. The reason being, of course, that UT Austin is a major research university. It has a value placed on research. It has a very strong community college leadership program led by Dr. John Roueche. And because of John Roueche, it had an enormous and powerful network of colleges and college presidents across the United States. And that could become the network through which a community college survey would get its legs. And so talked to John Roueche, and from that moment forward, he became a patron, a supporter, an advocate for the Community College Survey of Student Engagement. I held a planning meeting, or actually a meeting to kick the tires on the idea, involving community college leaders, presidents from across the country, and Russ and Peter were there. And with a very enthusiastic endorsement from that group, the Pew Charitable Trust asked me for a proposal for the funding, but they also placed the condition that if they were to fund, that we would have to have a matching grant. And so not too long thereafter, Susan Connor from the Lumina Foundation for Education stepped right up to the plate, and CCCSE became the very first grant ever made by the Lumina Foundation. So then we had our starting gate open for us. I can't say enough about John Roueche. There was no singular moment because he was always there.
Getting it to CCLP to UT was not a foregone conclusion, because, and Kay may have give it some detail on this, but we do about the good work that George Koo and the team in Indiana were doing with the National Survey of Student Engagement. And we liked that idea very much. And it turned out then some other people began to think, well, we ought to do this for community colleges too, because my gosh, an open door college, I mean, what happens there really matters in terms of student success or graduation rates or whatever. So much of my focus with CCLP, with everything, has been around the notion that community colleges have to be more than just open door. And we were losing 90% of the students who needed developmental ed. And people say, well, what can you do? I mean, doors open, our offices are here, our people's here. Let's find out why students are here, what we can do to help them, what array of services they can provide. And so a lot of colleges had done a good job with it. Denver, like I said, I read a book about Denver. Denver, urban community college, very diverse student body, had more representation from women and minorities than the other colleges combined. And yet in 5 years, they were leading the state in graduation rates, transfer rates, you name it. So there had been a good bit of progress, and a lot of progress was being made, but CCCSE was another example of opportunity for us to take that and take the support and get colleges doing more and more of their own assessment and talking to more and more of their own students and so forth. So
I will say now that very great gratitude in the history of the Center for Community College Student Engagement is due to Russell Edgerton, who was the former retired president of the American Association for Higher Education and then a program officer at the Pew Charitable Trusts, to Peter Ewell at NCHEMS, who is no doubt one of the smartest people any of us has ever met and was the intellectual source of much of what we've done. And also to George Koo, who was the founder and director of NSSE, the National Survey of Student Engagement at the University of Indiana at Bloomington. All of those people were enormously generous in their vision, which I shared, that after NSSE was founded with funding from the Pew Charitable Trusts, everyone knew there was a need for a sister approach that was tailored for and appropriate to the community college sector in the United States.